Hey everybody, it's Leon with Bigfoot Okanagan, and this is part 2 of Cognitive Brain Games, our minds play with us. Now the reason why I'm doing up this particular these type of videos is I'm actually trying to start a new neural net pathway in your brain. Yep, that's what I'm trying to do, to help you have more resources for when you're going into the bush so you don't get tricked in regards to certain biases or particular processes in our brain that try to fill in blanks, and you can kind of check in with yourself to make sure what you're perceiving is what you're perceiving, and what you're seeing is what you're seeing, and what you're formulating in regards to a hypothesis is valid for what you're looking at. So just before we get started here, what I want to do is show you a quick picture, and what you're looking at there is a dress. And some of you are probably familiar with this particular dress because it was online on Facebook, I think a little over a year ago, and it was quite an interesting thing that circulated around. And the backstory to the particular dress that we're looking at, the white and gold dress, is that a mother had went around looking for a dress that she could wear for her daughter's wedding. So she took a picture of the dress and she sent it to the daughter. And when she sent it to the daughter looked at it and thought, oh no, this is white and gold dress, and I have a white bride dress, and I don't think this is a good idea. So she told that to her mother, and then her mother responded back confused, saying, what are you talking about? This isn't a white and gold dress, this is a blue and black dress. And now some of you who have been watching the video and you saw the picture of the white and gold dress, you probably saw it as a blue and black dress. Now, why am I showing you this particular video? Well, I'm showing you this video that if we have an entire population, and out of that population, 30% of viewers are, even though we're looking at the same thing, which is a dress, 30% of you are seeing it as a blue and black dress, and about 70% of you are seeing it as a white and gold dress. So what does that tell you? That tells you we got a mystery in the mind. And in our mind, it's about perception. So that's what we're going to talk about today, a variety of different types of perceptions and a couple of different laws as well. I'm thinking about throwing a bit of a grenade on this out in this particular video at the very end, so hopefully you'll stick around to that. And the reason why I'm doing that is to cause some conflict in your brain. Deborah, she's from Forest Folks, she's from France. I know what you're saying when you say, Leon, sometimes you make my brain hurt. Trust me, it makes my brain hurt too. But we're looking for facts, and we're looking for higher education to help us understand and train ourselves better. We can do much, much better, you guys. I totally know we can. In regards to how do we equip ourselves to find Sasquatch so we can actually film them. That would be awesome. So on that note, let's get going. Okay, so kind of what I want to talk about first of all is what's called the bandwagon effect. And the bandwagon effect can be kind of like mob mentality in a way, if you want to think of it that way, which is normal good people, you know, they're out at a sports event and stuff like that, and then someone starts going crazy, and then someone else starts going crazy, and someone else starts going crazy, and someone else goes crazy. So that's kind of like the bandwagon effect. But in regards to what we're talking about, which is a new idea that comes into the Sasquatch community, and everyone kind of gets in the bandwagon effect of whatever that idea happens to be. So when Rio on Utah Sasquatch started doing a lot of the stuff, he kept associating structures with Bigfoot and or Sasquatch, and so a lot of people kind of got on the bandwagon on that visual structures or signs that Sasquatch are around and stuff like that. So that's kind of one perspective of what we're kind of talking about in regards to bandwagons. So another areas of that would be kind of like Sasquatch and UFOs. Certain groups of people get on the bandwagon on that one. That they have Sasquatch and portals or quantum physics ideas about interdimensional concepts about Sasquatch, the healing Sasquatch, you know, all these kind of different bandwagons that seem to be out there. So depending on how you're bent and how you're wired, you're going to be drawn into specifically those type of schools of thought. I don't want to really say schools of thought because I don't think they're schools of thought, but concepts and ideas that are out there that will fit your psyche quite well. And so you want to watch out for the bandwagon. Because everyone else is doing it doesn't necessarily mean that it's correct in regards to its factual basis of whatever the belief system is on those bandwagons that are everyone's jumping on board to. So just slow your process down, be an independent thinker, and make sure that you're just not just following, you know, being a sheep, just following everybody and whatever they're saying on the narrative on the screen here. So the next one I want to talk to you about is what's called the flash face distortion effect. Now this is a really, really interesting one. Okay, so the flash face distortion effect. Now what is that? Well, I'm going to show you something in a bit that is going to explain it. But so, I want to show you something first a little bit. So when you're looking at me right now, you can see, you know, back behind me, behind the desks and all this stuff that's behind me and all that kind of stuff. And if you looked around the room that you're looking at, you can see the entire room. So right now, even though I'm looking at the camera, I can make out the walls around the perimeter, my whiteboards here in the office and stuff like that. But I want to kind of not challenge you a bit, but give you a bit of insight. Now, the thing about the brain is the brain kind of does not like using up a lot of resources. In other words, energy involved in having to do data collecting. And so what it does is it kind of cuts corners. And what do I mean by cutting corners? Well, what I mean is if you walk into a room or if you happen to be invited into any new environment, your eyes actually are moving quite rapidly, and you don't see it because it's very quick. It's so quick that your eyes, I can't remember exactly what the speed shutter is for it, but your eyes are moving very quickly to analyze the room. So when you're actually looking at me right now, if you took your arm out and say you had 20/20 vision at home, you took your arm out and you put your thumb just in front of you, that's 1 degree of 360 degrees all the way around. But that 1 degree is the only spot that you actually see 20/20 vision. So right there, that's it. That's actually what you actually see, is that width of that thumb right there. Everything beyond that thumb, your brain is absolutely reproducing. What, Leon? Yeah, that's what's happening. You think you're seeing the environment. In other words, you think you're seeing all this stuff behind me, this stuff and all this kind of stuff, but you're actually not seeing it. What your brain is doing is actually reproducing it in your mind. And that when you deal with illusions and stuff like that, that's where an illusionist is going to kind of set you up. If I'm doing courses and that, and I want to throw an illusion and I want to get people's attention, the brain likes, like I mentioned about patterns, so what it likes is straight lines. Why does the brain like straight lines? Well, the brain likes straight lines because it fills in the gap. So if I want to get your attention, what I would do is I would say, hey you guys, I want to talk about something, I want you to look over there. And just by action of my fingers going straight line that way, the brain already fills in the blank in this part. And usually when I'm going to slip in something is going to be during that part, because your brain's going to fill in the gap for me. And so if I'm going to do a quick change or a quick switch or a quick something, that's when I'm going to more likely do it. Now, why is this kind of important? Well, I want to show you something just before we get on with this. And what that is I'm going to show you a group of pictures. And when I show you the group of pictures, you'll see a little X right in the middle of the screen here. And you'll see pictures on the left and the right of famous stars or famous actors. And I want you to just focus on the X in the middle, and here we go. So what you're actually seeing as you look at that X right in the middle, keep your eyes focused on the X, and I'll start changing the pictures here. And as you start seeing the as you keep focusing on that little X in the center of the screen, you'll see that the pictures become distorted. So these famous actors that you know quite well, just keep focusing on that X in the middle of your screen and you'll start seeing that they get almost grotesque looking as the pictures keep flipping through there. Now what's happening in your brain? Well, come back to me here. Okay, so what's happening in your brain is that your brain can't handle too much information, and because your eyes are actually fixated at that thumb width, that 1 degree 20 vision, as long as it's focused on that, the rest of the peripheral starts getting really distorted. Now the reason why this is kind of important for what we're doing in the bush is you've heard a lot of people say, I've seen something on my side, I've seen something on my right side kind of flash by, or my left side kind of flash by. You need to be cautious about all that kind of stuff. Anything that is not within this 1 degree, unless you're looking directly at something, you can't guarantee you actually saw something there. Now there's a whole bunch of other dynamics that you can pull together as resources to validate that. So in other words, you get intuitive sense, your hair stands up in the back of your neck, that makes you kind of aware as you're walking through the forest and that. But when you're seeing stuff, shadows on the side of your eye, shadows in the side of your peripheral vision, you got to be really, really cautious about anything that you're seeing past this zone right here, because everything out here can be affected. And if you notice the time it took for your eyes to start distorting those pictures, it didn't take that long. And what's actually happening in your brain or in your eye is your eye's getting fatigued. And that fatiguing, that's why your eye has to keep moving. Because if it doesn't, it can't read, sorry, you can't upgrade the information that you're getting in your head. So that's another cognitive trick that you want to be aware of. I hope I explained that well enough. So the next thing I want to do is I want to show you another picture. Okay, so here you go. So what you're looking at right now is what's called the cafe wall illusion. Cafe wall illusion is when you're looking at something, in this particular picture, what you're noticing is they're kind of like black and white squares at the very top of the picture. And then you see these blue lines that are running horizontally. The black and white blocks are running horizontally as well in the picture. But then you see these blue lines that are also running horizontally, but they're tilted. They're aiming up a little bit or aiming down a little bit. Aiming up a little bit or aiming down a little bit. Aiming up a little bit or aiming down a little bit. So come back to me again. Okay, so now the weird thing about that is you're not actually seeing lines that are tilted like this, or like this, or like this, or like this. You're not actually seeing that. Now I know if I showed it to you right now, like right here, you're looking at it and you're going, well no, I am seeing that, Leon, and I'm saying to you, no, you're not seeing it. Your mind's perception is that you're seeing that style of pattern, but that is not what you're actually seeing. Those blue lines that are angled like this or like this are actually totally horizontal and totally straight. Here's the picture again. Pause the picture, get a white piece of paper, put it on the first horizontal lines at the top of the page and just go down really slowly. And you'll actually see that your mind again is playing a visual illusionary trick to you. And this is going to be really important. Listen, when think of it, if you're in the bush and you're walking around and you get piqued in some way where those three brains are firing in your head, you're going to have a lot of dynamics that are impacting your capacity to understand what you're looking at. And it's going to take some discipline, and that's why I harp on you about learning a lot of educational stuff in the forest. Don't just go look for Sasquatch. Learn about things in the forest so you stop thinking about looking for Sasquatch and learning things about the forest. You can learn about different types of plant life, edible plants, non-edible plants. You can learn about tracking, you can learn about reading the ground, you can learn about structures, shelters. There's lots of stuff you can preoccupy your mind with. And the reason why you want to do that is so that your brain disconnects from remember, your brain is now programmed because you're looking for Sasquatch. That's the first block. So it's already going to be spooked in regards to looking for Sasquatch. So everything's going to be Sasquatch. And you're not going to choose this. Your brain's going to do this. And you need to help yourself get relaxed in the forest so you really feel comfortable being in the bush. And that will, for a lot of us, take time because we are not from the forest anymore. We're certainly not bush people anymore. Or a few of us, very few of us, are really got the bush rhythm in our system. So that's something you want to work on a little bit. Okay? The next thing I want to talk to you about is the illusory truth effect. Now, the illusory truth effect is kind of like the cascade effect. In other words, you hear something over and over and over again, so you believe it to be true, even though it's totally wrong. Okay? So the illusory truth effect is you come across something that sounds close to what you believe, so it becomes true. Because it feels close to what you believe, but it's not fact. But because it's close to what you believe, you take it in as being a truth. So you got to be kind of cautious about that one too, because especially when you don't know any topic and you start going out there and you're looking around for things and stuff, your brain, again, it's not you, it's your brain. Your brain is doing everything it can because you have told it with intent. You've said to your brain with intent, I want to find Sasquatch information about Sasquatch. So it almost overcompensates. It almost pushes itself way farther than what it actually has to go. It's easier to believe something that we think is true, and rather than look at all the facts to find out if it is true. Because, you know, it's just part of the way our brain works. We don't like exerting too much energy in thought. That's the other crazy stuff. I know it's frustrating for a lot of people. And this is when Deborah says it makes my brain hurt because I have to go do all this. I have to go back and check all this stuff. I have to go back and learn about forestry stuff. I have to go back and learn about tracking. I have to learn about reading the ground. Who wants to do that? And I just want to go look for Sasquatch. Well, you have to do that other stuff. If you're in this for searching and research, being a researcher, you got to do that stuff. That's just the way it is. If you're in here for the entertainment, that's totally fine. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can just come on for the ride and watch the rest of us go out there and do this kind of stuff. If you want to get the information that you need to get, you have to educate yourself on a variety of fronts so you really understand what we are looking at and how we know that what we're looking at is what we're saying it is, so that people at home who are out and are looking for information about, you know, maybe they're interested in finding a Sasquatch, that we can help them do that. Okay? So the other thing about it is, so when you read something that is completely false but kind of fits into your position, I want you to just be cautious a little bit that that you don't take it as being true. It might not be true, even though it feels like it's close to what you think as being true. It doesn't necessarily mean it is true. Another one I want to talk to you about is what's called the sunken cost idea. The sunken cost idea is when you have spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of resources, finances, say you've been doing stuff for a long time. And the sunken cost idea is usually, depending on what school we're using. If I'm using for a psychological definition, which is if you've invested a lot of time out. Listen, if you've been online for a while, and like I said, I'm as guilty as you guys are vulnerable as you guys are, is when I came online, I invested a lot of time in ideas and concepts that I heard online has supposedly been related to Sasquatch. And the problem with the sunken cost idea is I would rather listen to my mistress, the old way of my thinking, because I don't want to give up the idea that perhaps this is wasting my time. So what happens when you come up to an area where, or you've invested some time in regards to your belief or your hypothesis on Sasquatch, and then you realize that maybe I'm wasting my time. And I think Daniela off of Bigfoot Odyssey, someone in a chat, she was talking about, what do we do if we're wrong? Well, what do we do when we're wrong is we just start over. There's no use keep pouring investment into something that's not working. And the more we pour into stuff that's not working, it's just going to get really, really frustrating. And you know what I think? I actually think that today, nowadays, people are really getting tired of the same stuff. Watching videos, people showing structures, people saying this and saying that, but no one's getting any pictures of Sasquatch. I mean, not even pictures, let alone film footage of them anymore. Not only does your brain not like being wrong, and you get a physical reaction to that, is think of it, after you poured a lot of time into something in regards to your perception of whatever your strategy was to find a Sasquatch, and it turns out it's not working for you, then there's something up about that. Okay? So I want to talk to you now about the grenade. I'm going to throw a grenade into the Bigfoot community online world. Now, there's a thing that's called Parkinson's Law of Triviality. Parkinson's Law of Triviality, my definition I always say is it's when an idea becomes more important than the topic. So in England there was a nuclear power plant that was going to be built. This company was trying to put this nuclear power plant in this residential area next to this town. And so they decided that what they had to have was, of course, a town hall meeting with everybody that's local to find out whether or not this is a good idea, if we do this or not. And they also had, I think it was a model of the nuclear power plant, but they also, around the perimeter of the nuclear power plant on the model, it showed pathways, bike trails, and then this shed where the bikes were going to be held and stuff like that. And the weird thing about the town hall was that, of course, the nuclear power plant company people they're thinking they're just going to get roasted here because no one wants a nuclear power plant in their backyard, right? At the town hall meeting, everybody was focused on this bloody bike shed. The amount of time in the meeting spent on talking about the nuclear power plant was 2.5 minutes. That was it. 2.5 minutes was spent talking about a nuclear power plant in your backyard. 45 minutes was used to talk about the bike shed and what color it should be painted. So imagine that. Here you got a nuclear power plant coming in, and you go to the meeting to find out about this power plant that's being built, a nuclear power plant that's being built in your backyard, and it's only talked about for 2.5 minutes. And everyone else is talking about the bloody paint job that's done on a shed that holds bikes out in the park system they're planning on building. So when we're talking about Parkinson's Law of Triviality, the whole idea is the important thing, the issue is the nuclear power plant, not the bike shed. So where's this grenade you're going to throw in here, Leon? I'm going to suggest to you, as time moves forward, that we will find out that most 99% of all structures that we find online are all man-made. Absolutely every single one of them. Whoa! Now, saying that, I 100% believe Sasquatch do manipulate the forest and do things with stuff they find in the forest. I'll say that. But to say that most of the stuff that's online, 99%, I'll be the first to say it. I won't die. You can hate me on me all you want. But the bottom line, I don't buy it one iota that any of that stuff's Sasquatch. And I would encourage you to go do some good, solid, investigative reporting research and do up some videos yourself. Find out what structures are. Find out what tree snaps are from. There's actually a thing, and I think it's called treesnaps.org. And you can get an app on your phone for it. In the government, at least this is in North America, I think it's more in the States than it is in Canada and over Europe. And what they're doing is research and trying to understand how tree snaps are snapping. Now they're not doing this because they think it's a Sasquatch. What they're doing it for is to find out is there a way that they can come up with more genetically healthier trees, because most of those tree snaps, if not all of the tree snaps, are either done by four things: wind, snow load, insects, disease. And those are the areas that are usually snapped inside it. So I don't want to be the person where people keep saying Leon says. What I prefer to do, just like I do with everyone that I teach in my courses, is go do your research and make sure you're like a ferret. You go ferret out this information. Never take anything for granted. Come back and have a discussion with me about the whole thing. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And I know there's some great people that are out there doing that. So I will be the first to say publicly online, I'm pretty sure other people have said this as well, the suspicion is it's done by Sasquatch. I don't think any of the tree structures are done by Sasquatch at all. I think they're all done by man. The ones I've seen online and the ones I've seen in regards to people claiming that they're squatches. They're not squatches. The ground tells you alone that it's not Sasquatches. What do you mean, Leon? Do your investigation. I'm not going to give you that answer. You go find out what I mean by that. Read the ground. If you have an area that's well worn around structures, that's your first clue right there. That is not got to do with Sasquatches whatsoever. How do you know that? Do your research. You'll find out what I'm talking about. So, until I see you next week, I hope you have a great week. Wait. Don't turn off yet. So, the video's on perception, so I'm not too sure how many of you noticed some things I set you up with. For instance, I changed my shirt. How many times did I do that? And the items on the shelf were changed quite a bit. I think there's over 10 of them. And on top of that, I also included at the very beginning that video with all those pictures of those stars on it. You should have seen a gorilla in there and also a Sasquatch. So in regards to your perceptions, if you noticed very few of those shifts and those changes, that gives you an idea of a measurement that you really need to help your brain practice more, so you observe more wider your abilities, so you can see things when they quickly happen. Okay, that's it. It's about perception. Have a great week. Talk to everybody soon. Bye.